Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are so very excited. We are joined by a very special guest, Saundra Davis, who is a nationally recognized financial coach, educator, consultant, and dynamic motivational speaker. Saundra is passionate about, about her work with community-based organizations that focus on asset building for the working poor. Saundra is also the executive director and founder of Sage Financial Solutions, which bridges the gap between financial service professions and low wealth communities. So Saundra, thank you so much for being with us today and for talking to us about money.
Thank you. Thank you. It's one of my favorite topics. And so it's good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
We're so excited that you're here. I think our very first episode, Raquel said to me, I want to talk about money and building wealth. It's been on our minds, as I'm sure it's on everyone's minds. How did you get started with what you're doing?
Oh, honey, I made every mistake possible. You know, I made good money and I couldn't keep it. And it really wasn't anything that was clear to me, right? I couldn't really grasp that. I just never learned, right? So it wasn't as though I pinpointed, oh, wow, you're not a good money manager. It wasn't anything so obvious. I just knew that for my whole life, I had lived paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And because I was always, kind of living within my means and I never felt like I couldn't do the things I wanted to do or have the things that I wanted to have. The financial stress that I had wasn't very obvious to me. So it's not that I didn't have the stress. I just didn't realize, oh, that's what this is. It's like you walk around with something, if you walk around with the pain for so long, it just kind of becomes part of your life and you don't necessarily know that, oh, you know what, if I throw my shoulders back when I walk and watch my posture, my back won't hurt as much, right? It's not
right.
It just right, so it was like this thing that I was doing that I didn't realize was harming me. And I think that was really the biggest piece. I was behaving in a way that was harming me and I didn't realize it. I'd been in the nonprofit sector for a long time and I was doing this gig that was literally making me sick. I was being, I'm every woman, I'm doing all the things and making all the black girl magic happen and all of that. and I had 2 ulcers. But it paid so well. And I had become accustomed and my family had become accustomed to me being able to pay for us all to take a trip or I was comfortable. But right after, I think it was 2001 when 9/11 happened, and I was actually in New York when that happened. And it took us 5 hours to get out of New York. When I came home, my birthday was that following month in October. And the group that was making me so sick, it was just like that final straw. They had harmed me one time too many. And I was like, I am done. I'm done. Right. And their thing was, oh, you're not going to walk away from all this money. You're not going to watch me work, baby. I turned and I was like, I'm bouncing. I'm out of here. So I was like 42 at that time. And I had no idea what I was going to do. No clue. I had a bachelor's in management. I'd been in the nonprofit sector ever since I got out of the Navy. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just took a break, girl. I started making jewelry and stuff. I went back to my hippie roots. I was just like, okay, I'll figure it out. Honestly, I'm probably most grateful for that part, right? Because I have a resilience. I'll say more about that later, but I do not worry. Stuff happens and I'll have a setback. I'll have something that maybe knocks me on my behind for a while and I come back. And so I took a year trying to figure out what I was going to do. My partner, we had only just met like the year before. He said, be a financial planner. I don't even know what that is. I truly had never heard those words before. I did not know that a financial planner was even a thing.
Right.
So I went to a bookstore, and then this book said, if you're going to hire a financial planner, hire a CFP, or better yet, somebody with a master's in financial planning. So bam, I went and got one.
So you went and got a master's in
I went and got a master's in financial planning.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 44. Yeah, I was 44, and I knew that I was tired of financial struggle. So by then I got it, that the money was a big part of the problem, because I am a super happy, positive person. I was getting ready to lie and say easygoing, but that would be a lie. So I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you all that lie after all we've been through together. I knew that I was not going to get a job somewhere.
Okay.
So, and I love it. I started at 44. I knew that I wouldn't have enough money to retire. So I had to pick a profession that I could do well into my 70s, because I knew that it was not likely that I would have enough, to just say, okay, I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
So I had to find I had to find something that I could continue to do as long as my brain holds up. So that was it.
A couple of things that I really love about your story, Saundra. One, it shows that you're never too late to start over, ever. You're never too old to start over. You're never too old to, to reinvent yourself, to try something new. So that's amazing. So kudos to you on that. And then the other thing that I find so amazing is that you talk about that you just kind of knew that it was going to be okay, which that is amazing to me. And I think that's maybe something that will be amazing to a lot of people, is that it's so easy to get caught up in the, oh crap, my entire life has fallen apart. Now what do I do?
Yeah. It's funny, Raquel, that you say that, because I think what that is that I didn't believe security was a real thing. And that has its strengths and its weaknesses, right?
Right.
Because we all need to feel some level of security, right? So that Maslow's hierarchy thing is real talk. And so we all need to feel that. But because of some things that happened when I was really young, that just wasn't real for me. So I'm very clear, even at 62, that the only security that exists is the security that I create. Right?
Wow.
There's no job, there's no partner, there's no financial resource. There's nothing outside of this 5'4" sturdy chick here that can create any security for me. And other people might have a different perspective in that. So I don't try to knock it for anybody else. I just know that I was homeless at 15. So, look, you make things work. And if something's not working, now did y'all remember that I kind of have a potty mouth, right?
No, that's totally fine.
All good.
Okay,
do
cool.
It.
Okay,
do
we
so
the only reason I didn't swear just a second ago is because I was trying to be respectful. But
thank you,
I
appreciate it. But no,
it'll come on out. Don't worry.
Ex Navy, right? So so it was like, if I go down a road and it's not working, I cut that shit out and I go do something else.
Wow.
And I remember when I first got out of the Navy, I was a dependent wife. I got married right out of the Navy, and our son was 2. And I was a dependent wife for about a year, and, that wasn't working out. And so I got this job, through the military. Like, you go to the VA and they tell you all the jobs you're qualified for and all this stuff, right? And so back then, this is like 82, right? So back then, women didn't fit into any of the jobs that were not like clerical or whatever, right? So I go and I get this job, and it is cutting the electronic leads off of these things that go into radio transistors and those kind of things. So literally 8 hours a day, I'd get a little box. I'd go over to the supply cabinet and get all of my little diodes, or whatever the heck they were called, right? Get all these little things. and they had these legs sticking out of them. And then you set your little bar to cut them, and you grab it and you go and drop it in the other box. And you grab it and you just step on the pedal, go drop it in the other box. 8 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Boy.
Yes. By day 2, I was ready to shoot myself. It was just awful.
Yeah.
The only thing you could do to make it creative at all is like maybe switch feet. So now you use it. You use it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's exciting now.
Yeah. Using your left foot for the pedal instead of the right foot. Right. And they'd have this bell that they would ring. And I learned on day 1, I was supposed to bring my walking shoes because all of the ladies take a walk, and you could walk this loop because you have a 30-minute break. And so you take this 15-minute loop. You have 15 minutes to come back, eat your sandwich, and then go back to Wow. Baby, day 3, I didn't go back. I left my shoes. I left everything. I didn't go back. But so those kinds of things in my life have just kind of created this perspective that if I don't get what I want for me, nobody else is going to do that for me.
I love that. You're not looking outside yourself for your security. Your security is within you. Yeah. Oh, Saundra, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that today. So thank you for that. And that bears repeating. Your security comes from within you, not from some other person or some job. It's within you.
And the lovely part about that for me is that it doesn't feel like a heavy weight. It feels like, well, okay, Saundra, if you're doing something that's not satisfying, then you have a choice to make. I mean, there have been jobs that I've taken. When I first came into this field, I was making like $20 an hour as a 45-year-old woman, no benefits, 20 hours a week, $20 an hour to break into this field. So it's not like as long as conditions are great. Like I've had some really not great conditions. Yeah. And the fact is, me and only me, you know? So I don't look to the left or the right. And see, what's harder now is that because there's so much noise, you know, everybody's comparing themselves with other people, and everybody's looking out to the left and the right. And then there's a whole world of, you know, seeing other people's lives, and, you know, they show you the highlights. They don't show you the bloopers, right? Nobody sees the blooper reel, right? And so it can be very difficult to remember that everything that you need is in you, right? And this relates to every aspect. And so as a coach, right? Even though I have information, I have a master's degree in financial planning, I know more things about money than I will ever use in my own lifetime, right? And every single client I work with, every single person that I talk to, they are still their own best expert. I have information. They understand themselves. They know what gets in the way. They know when their behavior is misaligned with their desired outcomes, right? They know why. I don't know why. I can look at what I see, but just because you see it or think it doesn't make it true. So, you know, I could look at Jennifer and say, well, you know, if Jennifer wasn't so attached to pretty plants behind her background, she would be able to save for retirement, right? But I don't know nothing about Jennifer. Right. Jennifer might have got the pot at Goodwill and went out and found a little plant in somebody's yard, plucked it up, and I don't know. She knows though.
Jennifer probably did all of that. Resale shopper number 1 here.
Right. So, but that's why it's so important to not make assumptions about what we think we see from people.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this, sweetheart, it's also important that if you're not aligned, you get to do that, where you get to make the adjustment without shaming or blaming or abusing yourself.
Yes.
Right? Because if I was spending all of my time like, oh, Saundra, how'd you get yourself into this job? You know, if I did all of that, I wouldn't have the energy to say, okay, pivot.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what we miss a lot. We abuse ourselves so much in the process that we wear ourselves out before we can make the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I was thinking about is, so you ended your career, you went back and got your master's, and now you're a financial coach. For our listeners and for Raquel and myself, what does that mean? What do you do for people?
Yeah. So in the personal finance space, there's all kinds of ways to get help, right? The one we hear most about is either financial education, because we all talk about how financial literacy is supposed to be the thing that's going to change everybody's financial situation. Not true. You can know better, but not do better, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then there's financial counseling, right? And counseling usually takes the form of helping you to either build a budget, learn about credit, and then deal with, credit specific things. It might also look like housing counseling. You might hear, housing and urban development, our government official that handles affordable housing and all that. They have HUD housing counselors to help people buy the home for the first time, or those kinds of things. So a coach, though, focuses on the transformation of the person. While we might talk about your budget, the main point about the budget is when you have things exactly the way you want them, what does your life look like? And then what has to be different about who you are, what you know, and then what you do for that transformation to happen. So we may or may never get to, okay, what do your income and expenses look like? You may not need me for that, right? You may already know how to do that.
This sounds like more of a holistic, whole body approach to not even your just finances, just like how do you embody what you want in your life?
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like to me.
That's exactly right. And how financial coaching is different than life coaching in my mind. Now, not everybody feels this way. There are some people who feel like if you're a life coach, you can coach somebody around their finances. I don't agree. Because if Raquel tells me, hey, Saundra, okay, so this transformation, I got it, it's good, this is what I'm going to do. And she thinks it's a great idea, and she's headed toward the light at the end of the tunnel, but I know that light is a train. In general, a coach, an accredited life coach or a certified life coach, doesn't tell a client what to do. Right. Even as a financial coach, I don't tell them what to do, and I do make sure that they know that it's a train. Right. So that's why having financial competencies is so crucial for a financial coach, because I can rah support and help motivate you in a direction that neither of us knows is harmful for you. Right. Because in our financial lives, everything affects everything. Yeah. Every single dollar you ever make affects your entire life. Right.
What are some of the trains?
Right. Well, so sometimes you might be in Target, right? Since we're all wearing red, we got our red stuff on. Let's go with something that we know, right?
Oh, I can see how Target could be a train.
Yeah, it is.
And again, just like everything else, it
depends,
right? It depends, right? So we can be in there and we've shopped and we get up to the counter and they say, if you fill out the credit card application, you'll get 10% off.
Oh, yes.
Right? Now, what they don't say is that whether or not you're approved, your credit score may take a hit.
Yep.
What they don't say is that, if spending is a challenge for you, this might cause you to spend more, thereby incurring fees and incurring all kinds of debt that you might not really be able to handle.
Yeah,
right?
Because they want you to incur the debt.
Their job is to sell. If you think about a couple of years back, matter of fact, after that event that I talked about, that 9/11 event, the person who was in office at the time stood at that podium and said, we need y'all to shop, go out, spend money, right? Because that's the society that we live in. What people often don't understand, we have a lot of biases that we don't necessarily understand how they impact what we do, right? Confirmation bias, right? That's a thing that I already believe. If you say something that's consistent with what I already believe, let's do it. It's got to be right, right? I think it, you said it, let's do it. Right. And there are many things in our financial lives that are not, number one, not common sense because of the economic systems that we have here. There are some things that are actually set up that help people who have wealth keep it, and people who don't not get it, not ever get it. Right. So why is a mortgage interest tax deductible, right? And yet nothing you pay on rent is supportive for you financially, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, it is. Why is it that if you're on public benefits, certain ones, not all of them, but certain ones, if you're on public benefits and the idea is to help you become stable, but you save $2,001 because you cannot save more than 2,000, now your benefits are cut off. I mean, how many of us would feel safe and secure with only $2,000 saved?
No.
Most people, you won't survive a month.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so there are systems that create the poverty that many people experience.
Right. It's not just people who are on some sort of government assistance or supplemental income. I mean, it's people who, you know, what's now called the working poor, which used to just be, you know, everyday people, right? You know, people working 2 and 3 jobs at a time and still just barely making ends meet.
Yeah, I was people.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I've been people.
Yeah,
right?
I am people.
Yeah. You know, and so this whole notion that everybody's all excited about the side hustle now, baby, I've been doing that since the 70s. I don't know why everybody is enamored with this idea of having to work 3 jobs to feed yourself and your family and to live a quality of life. That's crazy. And not only have we accepted it, we've glorified it.
We have glorified
it. We have said you should be working the vast majority of your waking life. So it doesn't matter if your elders are suffering and your kids are not getting your best, right? And even more importantly, you're not even getting your best.
Yeah.
Do that side hustle. Side hustle. Get that bag, secure it, you know, it's killing us. You know?
It's so bad that sometimes I don't even know how to rest. I'm just learning how to do that. It's that bad.
I was 36 and I remember it very vividly. The first time I was able to just sit on my couch and do nothing without guilt. I was 36 years old.
What are the working poor? What are we supposed to do? And I understand, I even at the state that I am now, I do have a certain amount of privilege. I mean, I don't work 2 jobs right now, and I'm very privileged in that way. But what are people supposed to do? If you're just making ends meet, how are you supposed to build wealth? Is it possible?
So there's 2 things I want to say. Working poor means different things in different places in this country, number 1. So poverty level in San Francisco is not the same as it is in Manhattan, Kansas. So knowing that where you are, your zip code has a lot to do with what's available to you, right? So when we talk about financial capability or financial well-being or any of those ideas, we have to recognize there are multiple aspects of it. One is access. What do you have access to? Do you have access to appropriate financial products that don't cause you to go broke, right? Do you have access to healthy food? Are you in an environment that's a food desert for you? So all of these things matter. So if wherever you are on the income spectrum, and just to kind of normalize this, there's an article that was out, I believe, yesterday, that people who are making $250,000 a year are not making ends meet.
Really?
I think it's like, yeah. So let's be clear what we're talking about.
Okay.
Right? So there used to be the spectrum of income, the people who were low income, people who were moderate, people who were, middle income, right? And then there's the Henrys, high income earners, not rich yet, right? And then there were the wealthy, there are the wealthy. And how we view ourselves is often different than the reality, right? Very often, people who are maybe teetering on the brink of financial despair may not know it until it has happened. Think about a time when there has been an expense that you knew was coming, no doubt, right? If you have a car, there's going to be car repairs, there's going to be registration, there's going to be insurance. If you own a home, there's going to come a time where something in that home is going to break and you're going to have to pay out of pocket. If you have children, every August, guess what? You got to pay, you got to dress them little suckers, right? So we know that there are things that are going to happen. And yet, when they do, it feels like an emergency. It's not really an emergency. We know it's coming. What we didn't do, either because we didn't know or we didn't have the ability to do it, we didn't prepare for it. Right. So when I'm working with folks, the things that I help them to figure out, and full disclosure, I don't do a lot of one-on-ones anymore. I train people to become coaches now. So that's 95% of what I do. What we do is we help people first figure out where you are. No shame, no self-abuse, no unkind words. Where are you now? And then where do you want to be? And without assumptions. Some people, they want to be able to make ends meet, go out on occasion, provide some fun times for their kids, their families, and they're cool. You know, we assume everybody wants to be rich, right? Whatever rich means. That's not necessarily so. Now, if you want to, that's fine. But if you want to have a little small farm in your backyard and that's how you want to live and grow your own stuff. At my age, that's where I am now. I used to think I wanted the big 2-story house with the pool and all. I don't want any of that. What I want has changed drastically over the last 20 years. Where are you now? What do you want for now and for your future? So now Saundra wants to be able to work optionally at 60. Saundra wants to have a piece of property that my home, the home itself, is smaller than the yard because now I'm a gardener, right? Who knew? Used to be scared of bugs. Now I'm a gardener, right? and I want to be able to live outside of this country 6 months out of the year.
Beautiful.
Wow. Very different than if you had asked me that at 44, when I wanted a house with 2 stories and a cupola. I mean, my car is older than my grandchildren. My car has 367,000 miles on it. Do I want a new car? No, I want that sucker to run until it won't anymore. So I'm out. I go hug that car. I talk to that car. I put that $7 gas in that car, right? And so really knowing where you are now, without any shame, without any judgment. And if it means you want to live big, that's okay too, whatever it means to you. And then what is the map from where you are to where you want to be? Understanding that when you make more, you're going to pay more in taxes. In general, we have lifestyle inflation. So knowing that all of this goes into it and you get to decide what that means. It also means that the more you acquire, the more you have to protect. So when I said everything affects everything, my income affects what I have available to spend, what I have to make sure that I save for in the event, what happens if I lose that income, what insurances and other asset protection things do I need to consider, right? And then what does my estate plan have to look like? What happens once I've kept it, that intergenerational wealth you asked about, like how then do I transfer it? And what does it mean to transfer it? Does that mean that I make things easier on the next generation? And if I do that, what impact am I having on them? Am I helping them or am I harming them?
What is the answer to that question?
It depends. The answer is it depends. And Jennifer, the reason I say that is that my son is now 42. My grandchildren are 23, 21, and 13. I wish I had made my son's life harder, because he would have been better equipped to deal with some of the disappointments that he's had to deal with. My son is resilient, he's strong, he did his Navy time, all of that other stuff. But the thing that I passed down to him was poor money management. Because I gave him whatever he wanted. I didn't want him to have some of the hardships that I did. So I wanted things to be easier. I didn't understand what I was setting up. I didn't understand that he didn't learn at 20. Same thing with me. I joined the Navy. I got out of the Navy broke with him. He got out of the Navy broke with 3 children. And so I just didn't know. I didn't know I was harming him. And so now he's fine. Sure, he's going to be fine. He is fine. The kids are fine. And I could have positioned him differently had I known the impact of what I was doing. There's a story about Warren Buffett where he does not, I think his granddaughter was on like an NPR show about how he gives them no money. And the idea of that is he doesn't want to stunt their ambition. For me, and particularly in Black families, there's this tension. I don't want to stunt the ambition, and I also don't want their ambition to be stunted for other reasons. So I want there to be a safety net, and I want them to go after what they want. So we've got to be thinking about these kinds of things in a way that's congruent with what our values are. And that's where, so when you ask, what do you do? The most important thing that people miss is the value piece. Well, do I save? Do I get that? What people think about that. They think about the how. They very seldom connect to the why. If you get your why clear, you're honest with yourself about the way will become more apparent.
What are some of the main whys that a lot of people reach for?
Yeah, the thing that I have learned is that most people want to feel free. They want to feel like they can spend time with the people they care about, that they can go the places they want to go, experience new things. I have a girlfriend, she says, I just like to eat fancy food. So, there's certain things that we just care about. I think most people, why is congruent with what the values were that they were raised with. So for me, being near my family is really an important why. Being able to do work that matters in the world really matters. It matters to me. I could make a lot more money doing different stuff than what I'm doing. I like money, don't get me wrong. I'm just not willing to sell everything that I am to have it. Mm-hmm. Right. So for me, I like that I can get up at 8, 9, or 10. And I like that I can take a walk at noon or 1 or 2. And I like that I only have to work with or talk to people who I enjoy. I don't talk to anybody that I don't enjoy. I don't work with anybody that I don't enjoy. And
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it wasn't always that way. So I want to be clear. That's, I
paid your dues.
I have some of my dues longer. Some of my dues were a much bigger bill. And I also still have student loans at 62, right? I also, even with my master's degree, every decision I make is not the smartest financial decision. It took me years to get my trust together. I've done the smartest things around making sure I have an advanced healthcare directive so that no one has to suffer if they have to make a decision about my health. I've done a simple will to make sure that things are transferred the way that I want them to be. I have a semblance of a budget that I stay within most of the time. I'm really behind on retirement planning. And so I spend a lot of energy on that. But all of those things, every single one of those things I just described, Jennifer, that's my freedom. Freedom to be able to work how I want. Freedom to stop working when I want. Freedom to travel. That having access to healthy food, sometimes that I grow myself. For most people, when we dig and dig and dig, the bottom line for most people is they want to be happy, and happiness means different things to different people. My job is to help the clients find they're happy and then align all of their resources, their time, their energy, their money into what makes them get that. Whatever that looks like, understanding that it changes, giving ourselves that grace.
Is there one big mistake that you see people making over and over and over again that you could almost say everybody's making?
I'm going to steal from Alice Walker. She says the mistake people make about their power is assuming they don't have any. The biggest mistake we all make is not owning our power in all of the ways, including money. Now, that said, there are systemic things that are
Yes.
oppressive.
Yes.
Right? That are just downright oppressive. There are personal choices we make that cause us to be oppressed. We have to reconcile the choices we make that do us harm, whether it's in our attitudes, our perspectives, or our behaviors. And then when the system is oppressive, deciding what you're ready, willing, and able to do about that. Like I've been screaming about this asset means test since about 2006. Does it change? No, but I keep screaming.
What's the asset means?
Yeah, that's that $2,000. Remember that $2,000
Oh,
I
yeah,
mentioned? Yeah, that's what it's called. It's called an
Okay.
asset means test. So when Raquel, when you ask like, what can people do? First of all, if you are eligible for public benefits, get them. If you are eligible for unemployment, get it. Anything you are eligible for, get it. That will provide you enough of a safety net that you can breathe. There's this wonderful book called Scarcity. Well, it's only wonderful because it tells the truth. But the fact is, our brains cannot function well and make good executive functioning decisions when we are under stress.
Yes.
So if we are under constant stress about money, of course you're going to make decisions that are not in your highest and best interest. It's almost impossible not to.
Right.
And so this is why the shaming and the blaming and, oh God, I did it again, all of those things we do to ourselves, it's just not helpful.
Well, and neither is the shame around taking advantage of the systems that are there to be a safety net for you. Because there's so much shame around those as well. Like, oh, you're taking advantage of using food stamps. Oh my God, you're so awful. You're a loser. I mean, or if you are someone who's currently taking advantage of that system that is there to help you, food stamps or SSI or whatever it is, there's shame that you put on yourself because society is shaming about it.
So remember, we were talking about that, right? The systemic oppression and the personal. And that's what you just described is a perfect example of the perfect storm because both of those things are in play. All right, so quick pop quiz.
Okay.
If you are in the military and you are an E1 through E4, you are eligible, more than likely, if you have children, you are eligible for food stamps. Yes or no?
I would say yes.
Yes. So if you have children and you go to work every day on a job that could cause you to be killed if we were to go to war, you are eligible for food stamps.
Does that apply to other high-risk employment as well, like firefighters or police officers?
It depends. It depends on how much they make, how many dependents they have, and where they live. So when we throw around, somebody being on welfare or somebody, they don't even call it welfare anymore. It's called TANF, temporary aid for needy families. Sorry. So when people make judgments about folks needing support, they ignore the fact that our United States military, many of the boots on the ground are eligible for food stamps, even though they have access to housing, even though their health care is paid for, they still make so little. And so that's why I like for people to understand that, because if you're working a job that has done everything possible to keep you at minimum wage and where you don't have access to full benefits and you need to get food stamps, get them food stamps. It's even cooler now. It's a little EBT card. It's a credit card now.
Yeah.
I remember the shame of the food stamps when I was a kid.
The different colors.
Oh yeah. And I say these things so that we can normalize the fact that financial situations, sometimes we do create our own hardships. Absolutely. And even if you had, abusing yourself doesn't fix it.
What is the shame around food stamps? Like if you have to use them and pull them out, you feel...
Yeah. And people like Raquel just mentioned, like you can go out and say you're in a grocery store line and you go to pull those out. Now, everybody in that line who's behind you knows that you're in some kind of, it's the same way, y'all are probably both too young to remember when they actually used to send food boxes. You might hear the jokes about the government cheese, right? You would get boxes, you'd get boxes of food. And here's the funny thing is that food banks, have this same and similar experience. And the unfortunate reality of that is often people who don't need it at all go and get the food boxes and then resell them in their community. So it's just like even things that are supposed to be available for people who are struggling, our capitalistic system has created this sick way of keeping people who are in struggle. And so I don't say this to be a complete downer, because the thing I'm hoping people take away from this is, even if you are in that situation or someone who is dear to you is, the first thing is knowing that you still have some power and you get to decide how to get that help. And there are ways to get that help that are free. There are ways to get that. Right now, this country, we are running rampant with what's called UBI, or Universal Basic Income, or Guaranteed Income. And often people think, other people who might not need it, or actually even people who need it and don't want to, fess up to the fact that they need it, are, if we do that, people will be lazy. The evidence shows that people who participate in these programs actually work more, actually save more, and actually have the breathing room that addresses the scarcity that we just talked
about. Now, you bring up universal basic income, which is one idea that people are using to help try to alleviate some of the wealth gap, right? That we've alluded to quite a bit during this discussion. I went back and listened to the episode of Barry Tesler's podcast, Art of Money, that you did 3 years ago. And one of the things that you said in that interview that really stood out to me was, you said, we are not going to save or budget our way out of the wealth gap. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, some of it is just so systemic. So an individual's ability to change the wealth gap is just not, it's not going to happen. You can manage your own wealth gap, right? You can navigate by creating something that makes you money. You can go back to school. I make more now than I did before I got my master's. And I have the debt that goes with it, right? So let's not ignore that little truth, right?
Yep.
But there's nothing that we're going to do as individuals that change that. We are subject to the tax code. We are subject to interest rates and inflation and all of those things. And we're also subject to, people can say whatever they want, the income gap for women, and particularly women of color, is still very real, and those are things that leaning in, forgive me if people are excited about that idea, leaning in ain't going to change.
No.
Right? You can lean in till the cows come home. You're just going to fall on your face. And so I just think it's important to recognize, and here's the double-edged sword. I never want to give the impression that people should not be trying to kick the doors in. Yes, kick the doors in, and understand that there is a system that helps maintain the status quo. And we are that system. There's one big bank that just recently stopped charging overdraft fees. Only one of them. There are billions of dollars, billions of dollars in overdraft fees. So guess what? Who's paying the overdraft fees? Is it the people who have a lot of money? No,
those get waived for those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
Exactly.
They get waived.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have overdraft protection that
yes,
rides it onto a credit card or whatever.
Yes. So that's what that statement was about. And I said it 3 years ago, and I stand by it today. Sometimes I get into conversations with other financial or other professionals who are more on the social work side or the research side. And they'll say, well, Saundra, you're not going to coach somebody out of the wealth gap. Absolutely not. What I can do, though, is I can help them own their power in a system that is designed to oppress them. That's what I can do.
That's a lot.
I think so.
That's
Thank
a lot.
you, Jennifer. Thank you.
That is
that's
very powerful.
That's my role. Now, and let me just say, I've said this before, so if you've heard me on other podcasts, my bail account ain't set up to deal with the whole government. I'll be in jail. I'll be, y'all, unless y'all go bail me out, I have no business trying to take on these systems, because I don't have the temperament for it. I'm mad. I'm mad. I don't mean angry. And if dogs get mad, yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad. I am furious that we have accepted and have normalized people killing themselves to survive. I am furious that people who work at hospitals like Stanford down in Palo Alto, a nurse at Stanford, you may have read the article, who was living in an RV in front of the hospital because she couldn't afford to live in the community where she's saving lives every day. I'm furious. I'm furious. I can either let this eat me alive, or I can do what is my mission, which is to help people who are navigating systems. And people say, oh, the system's broken. No, it's not. No, it's not. Systems
It works the way it was set up to work.
The way it was set up to work. So if you're sitting around for somebody to fix the system, you will die waiting.
Right.
You will die waiting, because it is not broken. It is doing what it was designed to do. It's failing us, but it is doing what it was designed to do.
So
how do we dismantle it?
Gotta shake it up, girl. Look, I can't help on the political side because I really don't know. I really I don't profess to know. What I do know is that we can collaborate, we can do co-ops, we can do things in communities, we can do things in our families that get our personal power back and our community power back. Those are the things we can do. And so when you see programs like a guaranteed income, UBI, and you know people who can benefit from those, even if you don't need it, tell people. Right. Baby bonds is another conversation. Dr. Derek Hamilton talks about this a lot. Now, are baby bonds better than having free college? No, free college is better. But if all we can get is baby bonds, get them baby bonds, right? So that money is put away, so that people don't have to struggle just to get a basic education. I mean, now getting a high school diploma ain't going to get you very far, and don't get me wrong. I have no doubt that our government and the people therein know how to do this.
Of course they do.
Yeah. So when we say, how do we change it? I just have no confidence that there's any desire to change it.
We need to, as individuals, vote them out for sure. Do what we can to reclaim and utilize our own power, our individual power, make our own lives better for what we want and what we need and for our communities, while working to change the system.
That's what I think will work. Keep in mind, I'm 60, which means I was born in the 60s, right? I was born in 1960. We thought we had made progress. So don't be fooled. We were fooled. A lot of us that thought the 60s and 70s brought about change didn't realize that giving Black folks a BMW and a house in the suburbs was going to make everybody feel like we had made some real progress, right? So don't be fooled by the Juneteenth ice cream. Don't be fooled by the trivial concessions that are made to keep us passive, because that's really what this is about. As long as we just kind of let things skate. And I don't really profess to know, I really don't. I don't understand what the people who perpetuate a system that will allow cancer drugs to be $16,000 a month. I don't know what they think is going to happen. So how can you simultaneously complain about the population shrinking and kill off the people who make up the population? I don't understand it, and I cannot be discouraged. I do what I can do. I can control Saundra's little circle here, and that's what I do. I help people feel better about the choices that they make. I help people gather their own perspectives about money and then share it with their families and then out to the larger community. And so I do what I can so that I can keep a smile on my face, because I can't let them win either. So I'm not willing to sit in the corner and be miserable. So I do what I can do. And this is the path I've chosen. Some might say it chose me, because girls, if y'all had seen me in my early Saundra, a financial planner, really? How'd that happen? Where did they do that at? Okay, so you wouldn't have thought that was even a thing, right? So, but here it is, and I love it, and I train people, and I know that most of what I really would love to see is not going to happen in my lifetime. I've accepted that, and I just hope that I have put enough love and self-compassion and self-empathy and knowledge into people that they can take it wherever they take it next.
Beautiful. You said you're not going to live long enough to see these things that you want to see. What's the number one thing that, if you could have your vision come true, what would it look like?
Oh, I love that question. If money were no object to me, I would own a city block in an urban setting, and that entire city block would have homes all around that were inward facing, with a community center in the middle where there was a dining hall, some light shopping, childcare, and people who needed care would be cared for by professionals, and the professionals would bring their children, and their children would be in the daycare there, and the elders who lived there would be able to work in the daycare or in the kitchen or in the shop or in the wherever. And if they wanted to work, they could work. And if they didn't want to work, they didn't have to work. And everybody would work a 4-day work week. And we would all grow old planting gardens and playing pickleball and bocce ball and watching children laugh and play. So if I had things exactly as I wanted them to be, we would have those kinds of communities.
Communal living.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's how we started.
Yeah.
This whole individuality thing, that's not real.
Right.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because I think this is a big financial thing that I've seen in my neighborhood. My oldest went off to college, came home because of the pandemic. She's 22 now and living at home, and every single one of her friends is living home all around the neighborhood. All the kids are home.
I love it.
But it's two things. It's number one, they're doing it because they can't afford an apartment.
Right. And so
None of them.
But Jennifer, here's the thing. This is where we change the mindset. What other country do you know that wants their children out of the house at 18 years old?
No, it's
when
ridiculous.
We know, when the science tells us their brains aren't even finished till 25. So why on earth do we think that that's a good thing? Now, so what you and your community can do is start to help them understand the benefits, because they're being judged. And then you're being judged for letting them stay. They're being judged for not making it on their own. And so we have to change that dynamic. So if you were to gather your community, what kind of conversations could happen?
Yeah, it's real interesting because I think COVID has made it okay for them all to be home. There isn't a whole lot of judgment right now because it sort of forced us all into this. It has been beautiful and rewarding. And I think people are opening their eyes to that.
Yeah.
And you're right. Most countries live in multi-generational homes. They're not living 2 people to a home and then send your children off to the next home, off to the next home.
And look what we've done. We've got all of these houses with no green space. We've got some cities that forbid you to put a garden in your front, in the front lawn, that one you pay property taxes on.
Yeah, crazy.
We've got some cities that will not allow you to capture rainwater in your backyard. That's
ridiculous.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So,
because they want to sell you water.
They got to sell us water, sweetheart. They can't.
So you can't collect your own water from your own eaves on your house.
Can't do it. Can't do it. It's against the rules.
Wow.
So, my hope is that we stay first, that self-care. One of the reasons, in addition to all of the things you already know about me, I'm also a certified mindfulness teacher. And so most of my work is on money, mindfulness, and the meaning of wealth. How do we do that? And what part of us do we need to lean into, right? If we're going to lean in, let's lean into those parts of ourselves. so that we can do the self-care necessary, and that the legacy that we're passing on. My favorite thing about my son is that everything that he does, he has a coffee cart now. He's a coffee snob. And so, but everything that he does is to promote other businesses in the community as well.
Oh, that's so cool.
Every event, every single thing he does is to promote this entire community in this itty bitty town of Rodeo, California, right? It's about this big, right? Everything that he does is to build community there, And if I didn't do anything else right, I did that.
I'm sure you did plenty right.
Yeah, it sounds to me too like you've done quite a bit right, Saundra. The whole idea around getting away from the whole individualistic, above all thinking that just basically runs through every avenue of our society. We need to move closer to the communal side of things. Yeah. We need to move closer to, yes, take care of you, but take care of your community too.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Everybody now that wanted to be so individual, now what do you hear? Inclusion and belonging, accept me as I, right? So come on. Belonging is the key. And there's a book, Sebene Selassie wrote a lovely book called You Belong. And it's absolutely beautiful. And she's right. We all belong. We always have, we always will. It's whether or not we want to allow ourselves to be with each other, even when it's uncomfortable. I mean, I live in a condo community. It's like sometimes, oh my God, I wish I didn't have neighbors. That's just kind of part of it. We can be unique and individual and still be part of a larger community.
Well, it seems like the work that you're doing around finances and individual finances are helping people to be able to support their communities in a way that maybe they haven't been able to before.
Each one of us can find a path that means freedom for us, and that we can share that, understanding that what it looks like for me will be different than what it looks like for you, and what it looks like for you will be different than what it looks like for Jennifer. And there's room for all of us to do it in the way that serves us best.
Oh, Saundra, I love that. I could listen to you talk all day, not just, about finances and community and maybe it's because you do mindfulness work, but just listening to the sound of your voice is very soothing. I, for one, get really triggered by talking about money, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do money shows. That's been a concern for me over the past couple of years, is trying to get over that and trying to demystify that for me. So I could listen to you talk about money all day. And that's saying a lot.
Can we try something?
Sure.
Okay, so I'd like for both of you to just kind of sit and throw your shoulders back, nice and relaxed, a posture that is erect and relaxed. And you can either lower your gaze or close your eyes, whatever serves you, and just notice your breath. And when you think of the topic of money, notice, where does it sit in your body? Bringing an idea that may cause some discomfort, not the worst thing, but just something that when you think about it, you feel some stuff. And noticing where that lives. And if you're able to take a breath and send just a loving, loving warmth to that spot, might be your throat, shoulders, your belly, wherever it is. Just sending a nice warm breath to that spot. And letting that part of you know that it's okay. Whatever it is, it's okay. And as we come back together, just remember what it feels like. Remember what it feels like. And whenever that money tension arises again, you get to do the same thing. Just take a deep breath and come back together.
Oh, that was awesome.
Saundra, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and anytime you might notice that your shoulders start to creep up, you might notice a knot in your belly. It might happen when the mail comes or when it's time to check your bank, whenever it happens, notice it. Allow it to be there. Don't fight. It doesn't help. Don't fight. Notice it. Claim your power in it. It's going to be fine. If there's help that you need, find the help that you need. For people who need additional support through community services or public benefits, do that. If it's some personal things that you need to work out and you can't afford a financial coach, there's free financial coaching, people that I've actually trained. And I'll give you it's at afcp.org. I'll give it to you so you can put it in the show notes. If you're choosing a financial planner and you're working with someone that only focuses on the dollars and the cents and doesn't understand you, let them know what you need. And if they can't meet you where you are, fire them and find someone who can. There are people who do this work with an understanding that the human matters more than the dollars.
Saundra, you are truly a gift. Thank you so much for the work that you do and for sharing that with all of us. I'm the crier in the show, so.
She is.
Yeah.
You two are adorable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
That was.
You felt it all over. Where in your body did you feel it?
In my chest. Mostly. A little bit in my shoulders, but mostly in my chest. Like sometimes when I get really, really stressed, I feel like there's a weight on my chest and it feels hard to get a breath. The breathing part of that was spot on. And then the whole part of it's going to be okay. Like that, that was huge for me. Just having somebody say, it's going to be okay. That's huge. And then hearing it in Saundra's voice, which is so soothing. It literally was just like a hug, like, it's going to be okay, Raquel. That was amazing. And just the talking about money and talking about your finances and working on that, but taking the shame out of it.
Yes.
Is so huge. And I wish more people talked about that. Because I cannot tell you how much time I have spent not just shaming myself about money mistakes, but then also projecting that onto other people, thinking that they were doing it to me, thinking, oh, these people must think I'm a big giant loser because I don't have blah, 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 you know?
They weren't even thinking about you at all.
Right, exactly. Right. I'm not that important.
Right.
They weren't thinking about me. To just think that there's so many other people who are going through life with that same horrible weight and they
Raquel,
don't need to.
All of these topics that we've talked about on the podcast, cancer, HPV, suicide, money issues, dating in our 50s, all of it, people think it's this thing to be shameful about. And once we talk about it, we're able to release our shame. Yep. Money's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the taboo topic. You're never supposed to ask people how much they make. You're never supposed to talk about your retirement. Why not? We're not supposed to talk about any of the interesting things in life. Like all of a sudden we've got this free program to talk about whatever we want to. And you realize there's no shame in it.
Yeah.
We know what we know because of where we've been.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in it. I remember a time when I was a single mom of 2 kids and my kids were both in daycare in the summer. And my mortgage and my daycare payment was more than I made. Every summer, everything that wasn't my mortgage and my daycare payment went on a credit card all summer long. Because they were both in daycare over the summer. In the school year, they went to school. People would be like, don't use a credit card, you're using credit. And they would tell me what to do with my money. And I'm like, I don't have any other options at this point. And then every year when I got my tax return, I would try to pay my credit card off. I didn't ever do it until 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was able to fully pay off my credit card. But it took that freaking long. My kid's 22. So my kid turned 20. I finally could pay my credit cards off from the summer daycare fiasco. So there's no shame. You make what you make. The bills are what they are.
Yeah.
I felt it in my head in this corner right here, because I think I'm an overanalyzer. I know how much money I made. Budgeting is not a problem for me. I just didn't have enough money.
Yeah,
like, exactly. The money didn't meet the budget. I'm always trying to figure out the solution. I'm a planner, a solution-oriented person. So it hurts my head.
Yeah. Anything comes out of this episode and other episodes that we've done, let go of the shame. Just have to talk each other through it.
And what I have learned is just putting voice to it changes everything. Just saying that it exists, that money's difficult for everyone, probably.
I think so. Well, as Saundra said, even people who are making $250K a year.
Oh my gosh, that's shocking. Yeah. Give me the 250. I can make it work.
Right? Girl, I can do a lot with 250K.
I can make it work. But we don't live where they live. So it's, you know.
But still, I can still make 250 go a long way.
Me too. Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.